Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today is Reagen Tibbs, commercial ag educator at the U of I Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. And Reagen on the Zoom with us today. Reagen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Seth. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad. I know it's been a hectic few weeks for you. I appreciate you making time for us in the midst of your kind of rest and recovery. It was busy fair season. I know there in Logan County, the fair butts right up against the state fair. So I know you were just kind of all over the place. So how was your fair experiences this year?
You know, we had really good fairs. I think the weather held out for the most part during both county fair and for the most part down there in Illinois State Fair. Had really good attendance. Great to see everybody out at both fairs. So definitely, long days for sure, especially during the Illinois State Fair, but definitely glad that we had the opportunity to be there. And now, like you said, kind of in the rest and recovery mode, we're also kind of getting back into the normal swing of things here in the office.
Yep. Well, and in the middle of all of those fairs was just tons of rain and severe weather that rolled through in the early part to middle part of August. Man, I'll tell you, I venture a guess your 3-county area on top of just other parts of central Illinois you monitor. You're probably out there curious what crop conditions are looking like. How are the fields looking after everything we dealt with this month?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, we got a lot of beneficial rain here in the early part of August. I remember I was working at the Junior Beef Shows, the Illinois State Fair, kind of in the open air arena they have there. And when some of those storms came through Springfield, the lightning strikes were very, very close. Yep. So glad to be in some sort of shelter down there. But yeah, absolutely. A lot of beneficial rains throughout most of central Illinois that's kind of warded off those drought conditions. So we're really good, in really good shape heading into harvest. So I know you got Ed coming on later. I'm sure he'll talk more about it. But according to the National Weather Office there in Lincoln, Lincoln got already for the month of August has 4.3 inches of rain. Normally in August, we have 2.5. So we're definitely kind of well ahead the curve in that. And again, I think it set us up for a very, very nice end of fall, moving into harvest, getting those crops primed and ready for the end of their growing season.
You know, you called it a beneficial rain there early in August, Reagen. And again, Ed can maybe speak to this a little bit more, but from a crop perspective, I know around that time, the chatter was, boy, we really could use another couple inches to just get us to the end. And, we kind of look back in the last couple of weeks, it's been more than beneficial in places. Yeah. It's been too much on top of.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember talking to folks down there at State Fair from the Champaign area that said they got more than 10 inches of rain over those first couple of days. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, from a broad perspective, 10 inches of rain is quite a lot, and having it all within a 48-hour period is certainly way too much. And there are a lot of those flooding conditions. Excuse me. But for the most part, across much of other parts of central Illinois, definitely having those couple inches put us in a very good position here towards the end of fall.
No doubt. How are crop conditions, I guess, with all that said and done there, Reagen? You can probably speak to your 3-county area more specifically, but I don't know how much you monitor, like, McLean County got hit pretty hard. Peoria area, northern Illinois got hit pretty hard with some of these storms. I don't know what the breadth of your monitoring goes, but I guess from just what how are crop conditions looking?
Yeah, I think crop conditions are varying a little bit across the state. We have a system within Extension where we submit weekly crop reports that get shared out through a couple of different channels, through Farm Doc and also through Crop Watch through the Illinois Soybean Association. And so every time those come out on Fridays, I always like to read some of those and see what some of my other colleagues across the state are seeing. And I think one common theme that we're seeing, not just from our crop reports, but also from some of these harvest tours, yield tours that are going on across the state, is that we're seeing some of these tip back issues, particularly in corn. So what that means is kind of the first couple inches of the ear of corn, we're seeing corn kernels that haven't fully developed. And there's a few reasons for that. And you're always going to have some type of tip back every year. That's due to some pollination issues. So whether it was too hot during pollination or just the conditions weren't ideal for the germination process to begin during that process, or, kind of just overall just dry conditions, the kernel, or the ear actually, prioritize those kernels that were closer to the stalk where it's easier for them to get water. and then just kind of sacrifice those kernels at the very, very tip of the ear. So we're seeing those conditions, but again, that's something we see every year to a degree. You're always going to find those types of issues, no matter where you're at in the state, whether in the far northern part of the state, far southern part of the state, or even across here in central Illinois. We're also seeing some crop diseases coming out. I know a couple of my colleagues had sent some information into the plant clinic earlier last week, where they were asking kind of what's everybody else seeing, particularly with some issues like southern rust is the one that we're seeing back this year. Gray leaf spot is another issue we're seeing in corn. Not as much tar spot this year in corn, which is interesting that the last couple of years, I know when you and I have had conversations, and even last year during Farm Progress Show, tar spot has been a major concern and major discussion amongst corn producers here in Illinois. But this year we really haven't seen that much tar spot.
Yeah.
Not sure why we're seeing that. I know we're kind of having some discussions internally about, what sort of conditions have changed versus the last couple of years versus this year. We're not seeing as much tar spot. Our producers changing their practices with fungicide applications that are giving it a good barrier against tar spot infestations. And then on the soybean side too, we also got to talk about red crown rot. We're seeing a lot of red crown rot across, not just here in Illinois, but across the Midwest this year. And so again, that's another factor for producers to consider as they're planning ahead for the 2027 crop year.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I don't imagine it's as impactful on the trees as it is the corn crop, but I had a tree last year that actually had some tar spot on it. And I haven't seen that much this year at all. What causes tar spot? I mean, could it, is the wet nature of this summer, attributing that, or is it even worth speculating at this point? We're just glad it's not here.
Well, I mean, I think you'll definitely find producers who are happy that it's not here. But then again, we've had other diseases that have been prevalent. Like I said, soybean rust, gray leaf spot, those types of issues have kind of, taken over this year, if you want to say. But I think tar spot, with a lot of your crop diseases, hot and humid conditions, those are usually the ones that generally where they tend to flourish, especially at night. When it's in the mid 70s at night and it's still really, really sticky, really, really humid out, those are some of the ideal conditions for these diseases to show themselves. I think I read a chart earlier this morning that showed that for July we had fewer days that were kind of above 90 degrees than we had in previous years. So we didn't have as hot of conditions throughout the month. We didn't see that it was as muggy as it normally is around here this time of year. So definitely that probably played a role in it. Like I said, I think production practices too. Farmers are a little more in tune with their fungicide applications this year, maybe a little more, looked at more appropriate timing for those to try and, provide a good barrier, good protection against some of those diseases. So I think that's what we're seeing, a combination of those overall weather conditions versus some production practices that have kind of reduced the overall effects of tar spot this year.
We ran into an air conditioning issue in our house early in the summer, and for folks that maybe had maybe they've had similar, they've just had general, maintenance things with their air conditioners. Yeah. They would probably say, I beg to differ on the humidity thing. We slept through some pretty muggy nights, but
there were,
totally. I just thought that was kind of funny. There were times it was like, yeah, I beg to differ that it wasn't muggy this year, but at any rate, Reagen Tibbs is a commercial ag educator, University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. My guest on the Zoom here for this morning. I wonder, Reagen, also, with all the rain that a lot of places got so late in the growing season, and I know, crop insurance deadlines have since come and gone. How much is that going to impact producers and their plans this fall?
I definitely think we're going to see some interesting crop insurance decisions that were already made. Kind of, you think about May, June, when we had all that rain that washed out many areas of those fields that did have crops that were able to survive through that, and now we're seeing it again. I remember driving around Lincoln shortly after we got some of these big rains, right after State Fair, and I mean some of the creeks were out, and a lot of the crop areas that were around those definitely were pretty flooded. So we'll see if that has any impact on yields moving forward this year. On my right over here to Petersburg this morning, I've seen a lot of corn, a lot of soybeans starting to brown up and starting to turn, heading in towards the end of their winding down for the production year. So I think we'll start to see harvest come here pretty soon, especially if we don't have as much rain moving forward, if the conditions remain warm to mild, if you will. But definitely, I think some of those crop insurance decisions will be interesting to see how those play out once this year's wrapped up.
Well, and I was in rural. I was actually at the DeWitt Logan County line. It would have been southwest DeWitt County and northeast Logan County. There were already some fields starting to brown up a little bit. I hadn't seen much of that yet to this point. Was a little surprised by that, but there's probably going to be some areas we see an early harvest, because I mean the inundation of moisture hasn't been everywhere, Reagan. It's been really it's not hit and miss, but it has not been as widespread as you might think.
Yeah, so I think also too, kind of how that early planting affected things too. If a lot of producers are able to get their crops in very early on, now they're starting to end that kind of life cycle. And so, I think those combinations of, we might see harvest starting here fairly soon for a lot of producers, especially if they have a lot of acres, or especially if crops are starting to turn all kind of at the same time. I think we're going to see combine rolling here not too long.
Yeah, sure. Well, on that note, Reagan, I look at the clock. Anything else on crop conditions you want to dive into? Anything catching your eye? Any data that you have that you've taken notice of?
Again, I think another good resource for folks to reach out to or look at it are those crop condition reports that we publish every Friday on our FarmDoc website. If you go under crop management, or through the crop bulletin, excuse me. There's a weekly post that we put out every Friday of folks across the state who share the conditions and where they're at. And then again, those are also replicated through the Illinois Sweetness Association's crop monitor. So have a look at those, kind of get a good idea of where we're going to be at. And then I think over here in the next week or so, a lot of places are doing their yield tours, their harvest tours. And so we'll get a better idea of harvest or yield potential to start moving forward here. So I just first let's look at those resources and see kind of what conditions are at around their area.
On that note, Reagan, let's break, my friend. Come back with some more. Reagen Tibbs, extension he is a rather commercial ag educator with the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. More to come on the WHOW Morning Show. WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Monday. I'm Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network. Corn starting the day higher, beans lower, Chicago wheat higher. September corn opening $4.92 up 8 1/4. December corn up 9, 517 1/2. March corn $532 1/4 up 8 3/4. September beans $12.17 1/2 down 7 1/2. November beans down 9 1/4, $12.30 1/4. And January beans $12.44 1/4. Down 9 1/2. September Chicago wheat $6.90 1/2 up 9. September KC wheat $7.61 1/2 up 5 1/4. September bean meal $3.18.90 up $1.20. September bean oil $67.53 down $1.82. Energy market October Brent crude oil $93.27 down $1.12. Opening numbers on this Monday morning. Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network.
This is Inside.
Baum Chevrolet Buick offers full transportation options while giving you peace of mind. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. This is what we do every day. We listen to you, give you options for routine maintenance, major mechanical problems, or collision repairs with a staff that's knowledgeable to find the best option for you. Baum Chevrolet Buick, your full-service dealer. See us at baumchevybuick.com right from the start.
Here's Matt Hart, owner of the Hart Media Group in Clinton.
It's been great. You and Ben and the entire team are doing a great job. And we're just continuing on serving the local community, right? This is what this is all about. We're here to serve our local community. We're here to tell the local stories. We're here to cover the news. So nothing in that regard is changing. Our goal is connecting people. And that's our tagline at Hart Media Group. It's connecting people.
Hart purchased the Miller Media Group in August of 2025 and looks forward to serving the community for years to come.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Reagen Tibbs is a commercial ag educator at the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. He's our guest on the Zoom today. Reagen, I know in addition to talking about the latest in ag news, you also enjoy writing about it, and you're going to have a new blog post put out this week. What's it about? What are you writing on?
Yeah, so right before our county fair started there, at the end of July, the USDA put out a land value summary, land value report that looked at values for land and buildings, cropland, and pasture land across the entire United States. They reported state level data, but then they also put states into different regions. So Illinois was put in a region with Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, and Missouri. And so just as a way to give a comparison amongst the states in some of the regions. So the blog post I'm going to write about that's going to come out later this week is going to go over that report. It's going to kind of talk about sort of different trends that are prevalent in that report, and then it will also kind of compare and contrast with some other land values data that we've seen come out earlier this year, especially say the Illinois Society of Professional Farm Managers Rural Appraisers report, which came out back in March. So definitely kind of giving another perspective on the very complicated and very important aspect of land values here in Central Illinois.
Can you give us a sneak peek of what some of the trends are in land values?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a national level, we look at cropland values. The national value of cropland on average was $6,020 an acre, which was up 3.3% from 2025. The national average for pasture land was $2,000 an acre, or up about 4.2% from 2025. Looking at it from an Illinois-only perspective, our average cropland value was around $10,200 an acre, which is an increase of about 3.6% from 2025. Now, that's second in our region, only behind Iowa. And if you had to guess, Seth, what state in the nation had the highest value for cropland in the entire nation?
I'm going to go Nebraska.
No, a little bit too big. It's Rhode Island.
No way, really?
Has the most.
Really?
But if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? No, Rhode Island is a very, very small state, and there's not that much cropland there, so it's going to be very, very valuable. And so you're comparing a Rhode Island to an Illinois, Nebraska, California. It's a bit different, but that at the end of the day, that's what the data shows is that Rhode Island has the highest cropland value in the country. And then looking at pasture land values for Illinois, we were at $4,300 an acre as a statewide average, which is up 2.4% from 2025. And that was the top in our region. And again, the overall highest in the entire nation for that was Rhode Island. So some very interesting tidbits, some very interesting points there, kind of offer a unique perspective, again, in the very complex thing that is land values.
Interesting. I guess I don't know what goes into determining a land value. I guess I would have figured, where there's a lot of land, where there's a lot of good soil, that's and I would never have put Rhode Island in that equation. So that's I guess I learned something today, Reagen.
Yeah. There are a lot of variables that go into it. Obviously, like you mentioned, it's land quality, right? How good is that soil that's there on that land? What is it being used for is another important thing. What's the production history of it look like? And then also just the overall market in general. Is there a lot of land available? Is there not a lot of land available? Who is wanting to buy that land? Are we using it for agricultural production? Is it being utilized for other things? So all of those variables kind of play into this notion of land values. And so again, this USDA report kind of provides a very interesting perspective. And like I said, I'll compare that with some things from the Illinois Society of Farm Managers report, some data from the Chicago Fed, probably from the Kansas City Fed as well. So just a way, again, another view into land values here in Central Illinois.
Gotcha. Very good. When do you expect that post to go live, and how do folks find it?
It should be live by this Friday, if not earlier this week. So we'll post it on our blogs section. If you go under Illinois Extension and find our blogs, it's called my blog is called Farm Focus. So you can find it in there, and then we'll post it to our social media as well. through our unit webpage as well. So definitely a couple different ways to try and find that one.
How often are you blogging or able to blog these days, Reagan?
In the summer, it slows down a bit, but generally I try to do at least 2 or 3 a month. Just depends on kind of how things are going.
Nice.
And then again, if there's topics that come up, I generally try to write about them, but roughly 2 to 3 times a month.
Cool. Well, I always like to hear what you're writing about. I enjoy somebody that still enjoys to sit down at the computer and type out their thoughts. That's always cool. So check it out, folks, if that's something you're interested in reading about. Let's wrap up today, Reagan. I got a couple of minutes yet still with you, my friend. You're going to have a seminar in October there in Logan County with USDA and Rural Development. Why this and what's going on?
Yeah, so the USDA the Rural Development Program under USDA is looking to have various meetings around the state to kind of go over the programs, the services that they offer, and how local communities and community members can benefit from them. So we're going to have one of those at our Logan County Extension Office sometime in Lincoln. We're still working out some of our details, but it will be sometime here in October. And again, it's just a good opportunity to go over some of the programs that are offered through USDA Rural Development, and how members of the community can benefit from them. So it's not just about individuals. There are some programs that the USDA Rural Development has for kind of individuals or single families, but there's also opportunities for communities, for nonprofits, for local governments to take benefit of those as well. So we're really happy to host this meeting, and we're working on some of those details. So once we have that, if it's something that you're interested in, or you might know someone or some organization that might be interested in that, definitely direct them our way. We're happy to get them signed up and get them all the information about it once it becomes available.
All right, very good. So be on the lookout for that date and time again in Logan County. Reagan, unfortunately, I'm out of time with you, my friend. One more time, how do folks find your musings there through Extension and just keep up with the latest? Where do they go?
Yeah, they can go to our website, extension.illinois.edu/LMS, or call our office in Lincoln at 217-732-8289.
Sounds good. Reagen Tibbs, commercial ag educator, University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties, our guest on the Zoom. Always good to chat with him about the latest happenings in the world of ag in the 3 counties of Logan, Menard, Sangamon counties. And with that, we'll take a look at network news coming your way. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance.